We are girls, and we're going to talk about girl wrestling. And I guess we should introduce ourselves to people, right?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Okay. Well, this week I am out of time, Ann Clark. I'm simply out of time. Time has ended for me.
I am Emily Heller, the 97th wonder of the world, because today we are talking about Chyna.
We're talking about Chyna because today is the unfortunate anniversary of her tragic passing. On April 17th of 2016, she passed away at the age of 46 after a storied career in the wrestling industry. Emily, how did you first hear about Chyna?
I honestly, I did not get into wrestling until I had a child, and there was a lot of time to kill with content that you can consume when you're brain dead. So I did not really know anything about Chyna until I really started getting into wrestling in the last couple of years. I had heard the name, like I knew that there was a wrestler named Chyna. I sometimes got her confused with the Rob Kardashian Chyna.
Oh, right.
was it Black Chyna? But yeah, I didn't really know much about her and still don't know that much about her other than she was ahead of her time in a lot of ways.
Yeah, totally. I similarly, when I was younger, when contemporaneously, I was not super aware of her. I was aware of her existence. When I was a kid, I was not so into wrestling because it was something that all the boys who were mean to me liked. So I didn't.
Classic.
I was not drawn to it, and it was also something that when I was younger, was very like not for girls in a very pointed way, shall we say.
It's honestly kind of weird that I didn't get into wrestling around that time because it was all the boys that I had crushes on were into wrestling. So the fact that I didn't engage,
wrestling, and you were like, I dig those two hobbies.
Exactly.
No, I love that. I just never really got super into it. And ironically, I remember as a kid reading the National Enquirer because my dad was really into the National Enquirer. Long story. Anyway, they had all these stories about the sexual harassment lawsuits that were going on at the time that were really bad because they were about like people's breast implants getting ruptured during matches and things like that. And so I had this bias. I had an implicit bias against the WWE as a child because of the news that I read in the newspaper. It was fun. But yeah, I became more aware of her when I became a modern day wrestling fan because one of the first wrestlers that I was really, really into is Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
And Rhea Ripley is the very obvious goddaughter of Chyna in the way that she's built, obviously, but also the way that she's aesthetically presented, especially being part of like a otherwise all male faction. Like they just have a lot in their DNA.
Totally. I had not thought about that before with Rhea Ripley. And I mean, obviously aesthetically totally doing a lot of the same things. But yeah, she is very much in the mold of Chyna.
Yeah. And I'm really one of the things that drew me to our guest on this episode, Semler, is their video that they posted on TikTok that included footage of Rhea Ripley and all the female wrestlers in the WWE, really, as well as Timeless Toni Storm from AEW, because she's so clearly like the instigator of a lot of women wrestlers to come because she was one of the few female wrestlers who did fight people. Like,
right.
You know, there was pretty famously in the WWE up until the early 2010s, even you couldn't punch each other if you were women. Like it was a rule. They were not allowed to punch each other. They pulled hair and they could strip, obviously, and tear each other's clothes off and slap each other, but they could not punch each other. And there was sort of a
crazy.
It was a really delicate sphere. they had a very firm idea of what women were. Like WWE is totally trad in that gender role binary. Like it's
Oh yeah.
big, tough, muscle dude, delicate woman who must be rescued, or else she's a hoe who like, you know, sleeps with everybody, you know, like it's a very
Yeah.
like Madonna horror thing, you know?
Yeah, I always think about like the women wrestlers now who I was like they came up in a time where the only available gimmick was some version of slut. Like that is all you had. It's like
Yeah,
sporty slut or goth slut.
exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. I for the longest time I could not tell Alexa Bliss and Liv Morgan apart. No shade to either of them. I actually really like them both, but like when I first started
Oh
watching,
yeah.
it was like I would constantly be like, "Oh, it's Liv Morgan." Nope, that's not Liv Morgan. Because they style them exactly the same way. Like if you were a small blonde wrestler, you are Harley Quinn. That is who
Yeah.
you are. Anyway, should talk about Chyna.
Yeah, tell me about China. I don't know a lot.
She had a very turbulent childhood. Um, which I think is not abnormal for people in the field of entertainment generally.
Mhm.
uh, and she actually was also in the Peace Corps. This is a thing I really love about her. She spoke fluent Spanish, and she actually spoke a few different languages, if
Oh
memory
wow.
serves. I believe she spoke French as well, and German also. So she was
Oh my god.
multilingual. Yeah, she was very, very intelligent, very well educated person. And at the time when she was coming up, before she got into wrestling, as I said, wrestling was very like sexist. It was very, you know, girls don't fight kind of thing. But she was very into fitness and bodybuilding, which is tough when you're a woman, I think, because I have tried to gain muscle and lift weights, and it is not only difficult just in general because lifting weights is hard. It's kind of difficult mentally because it's like you're taught as a woman that you're supposed to be like we're social I feel like we're socialized to be small. And it's so counterintuitive to be like making gains.
I want to be big. Yeah.
Right. Like I knew girls in elementary school who were paranoid about like getting too muscular, like in
Yeah.
gym class. We were 8, to be clear. Like
The idea of getting super muscular in your school gym class.
this was like, 'cause not to age myself, but it was the 90s. And that, you know, and that is the era we're talking about where
Yeah.
she's really into fitness and bodybuilding. And that was a dark time for women who wanted to do things that were not the approved women's things.
Oh
Like,
my god. Yeah, no, it still is. I was listening to a great podcast. Panic World is the name of the podcast from Garbage Day, Ryan Broderick, and they were talking about like the transvestigation that happens today. And so much of it is directed towards like female bodybuilders. Like they were talking about oh my gosh, what's her name? She was in WWE. She's Ronda Rousey. That's
oh,
her name.
yeah.
Very very famous woman fighter whose name I should know, and I do. It's Ronda Rousey.
I thought you were trying to
Um,
think of someone huge, and Ronda Rousey has never struck me as particularly huge. So.
no, absolutely not. But people were like, if you look at her waist, like women's waist, like it doesn't matter how much muscle you get, a woman's waist doesn't look like that. It's like that's an insane thing to say. Um, but yeah, women are often told to be smaller.
Yeah. And you know what? When I hear people talk like that, I'm like, are you just like it's something psychological where I feel like people are talking to themselves almost. Like they're saying
Yes.
something they need to believe as opposed to something that they think has any bearing in science or fact. Like it's
Oh
just like
yeah, the conclusion that that episode came to is these people think that everyone is trans because that makes it okay for them to be trans.
interesting. I would not have actually thought that. That's really interesting though. Oh man. Yeah. I always just assume people have a real weird need just to instinctively police women, but that also makes a lot of sense if they're talking to themselves, that indeed it would be more about their own gender journey. But yeah, this is one of the things that I think is really cool about Chyna though, is it's like, and also Rhea Ripley, similarly, the reason I was drawn to Rhea Ripley was because she did remind me of Chyna in the sense that she seemed almost androgynous in her hugeness. And it's not that the hugeness can't be feminine, it's that they made the hugeness feminine. And that felt subversive.
And like it's very much a way of being sort of not for the male gaze and also still sexy. Every sapphic that I know who doesn't care about wrestling knows who Rhea Ripley is and is in love with Rhea Ripley because she's for the lesbians. She really is.
100%. 100%. This is another thing that I love about women's wrestling in general. It's one of the only places in entertainment where you can see normal women, or women who eat, is what I like to say. Like women who have bodies, which I think in general as a woman does appeal to me. Like that's for me, is to see a woman who had a meal today. Um so rare in entertainment.
Yeah. Oh my god, I was looking at Bailey's boobs. I was like, this we don't see a lot of like large, not fake. I don't think they're fake, but not fake looking boobs on women on our television, because that's not a thing that is appealing to the sort of commodification of women's bodies and trying to make them smaller, except for, tiny waist, big tits.
Right. Like they don't look like cartoons. They look
Yeah,
like human bodies, which is amazing to me personally. Love it. Love to see it.
totally. China's body does not look like a human woman's body, though. That looks like what is it? Ninth wonder of the world. She's
Oh,
huge.
yeah. No, Chyna was exceptional physically because I mean, even just like, but she was always she talks about in interviews always having been like, taller and larger than a lot of the kids she knew. I mean, she's 5'10". That's, for a woman, that's very, very tall. And I think that probably helped her get into the bodybuilding, because that was a place where, you can go if you're a big tall person. And it's rewarded because it's great to be big and tall when you're bulking up. Um, but that is how she ended up meeting Killer Kowalski, who she started training with in the wrestling space. He was a Canadian professional wrestler. I don't know much about his work other than Chyna, to be honest with you.
It's a great name.
It is a great name. And he
Very
was a
Canadian.
heel. I know that he was a heel, hence the name Killer.
There you go.
Killers can't be heroes. It's not right. So we have an early chapter of wrestling where there was a little bit of progress in women's wrestling. It was right when WWE was first starting, or it was called WWF at the time, not the World Wildlife Federation, famously.
Yeah, the pandas got mad.
Yeah, pandas got really mad. At that time, they had Wendy Richter as a champion, and she was one of the first like big stars of the company, and she was actually a big crossover star because she had this whole storyline with Cyndi Lauper. It was like a battle of the sexes match, and Cyndi Lauper was her manager, and it was a really big storyline at the very first WrestleMania, and it was a huge success. Wendy Richter famously, the WWE documentary on Netflix sort of covers this, but it covers it in a very WWE way because they leave out a lot of the detail I'm about to give you. Wendy Richter had a final match with this character called the Spider.
Nice.
And the Spider, they very soon realized, was actually I have to look up her name because I say it wrong so much. And sometimes I say her name is another person's name. I have this problem where sometimes if people have the same letters in their names, I'll screw it up because maybe I have dyslexia that it was never diagnosed. We don't know. We can't know. There's no way to know. this is beyond our abilities. Uh
We don't need diagnoses here.
no. Oh, it's the Fabulous Moolah. So the Fabulous Moolah was a woman who ran a wrestling school for female wrestlers. Yes, and she was later it's a whole thing. She was later revealed to have been somebody who was probably contributing to some sexual abuse going on, allegedly, you know. But Wendy Richter at the time was in this dispute with Vince McMahon because she thought she deserved to be paid as much as Hulk Hogan. She and Hulk Hogan were the stars of the company. Hulk Hogan was the boy star. She was the girl star. And she was like, hey, I had this huge thing with Cyndi Lauper, you know, on MTV and everything. Like, I got all this press for us. Like, you should pay me just as much. Vince McMahon was like, okay, so you're going to lose the title to this random character. And Wendy was like, no, I will not lose the title to a random character. So the spider again was the Fabulous Moolah in a hood, like a kind of like a gimp hood. And she was kind of famous for being like she fought stiff, which is where you actually get hit, like they'll hit you actually hard. And working stiff is a pretty big no-no in wrestling. Like, it's not a good thing to do, and if you actually do hurt somebody, they will most likely hurt you back to communicate, like, don't do that. But so this match was against the Fabulous Moolah in this disguise, and she ended up really like fighting Wendy Richter and like beating her up and like taking the belt off her. It was a really nasty screw job. Literally called the original screw job.
Oh,
Yes. The first screw job was a woman.
that's incredible lore.
It really is. They really leave that out of the Netflix doc too. It's really annoying. They're kind of just like, yeah, and then she wanted more money, so you know she was out of here. And they left the whole thing about the match out. They had clips of the match, but they don't explain anything that's going on. Anyway, so that was the last time women's wrestling in WWE was like a thing, as far as like the women actually really getting to have matches and storylines, because Vince obviously did not love women and having to pay them. Allegedly, he doesn't.
That's been pretty well established. I don't think that is a disputed fact at all, that Vince McMahon doesn't like women.
Yeah,
Doesn't like paying women.
It's the FBI was looking into it at one point. That if the FBI is looking into whether or not you like women, I think maybe you don't. But yeah, the way she came into the company, I will say also, is Triple H, Paul Levesque, saw her at an indie show, and he and Shawn Michaels really pushed for her to join and got her involved in Degeneration X, which is it's this big Attitude Era faction that I was not into because, again, boys bullied me as a child, and the boys that bullied me loved WWE. They loved DX because DX is famous for the suck it move.
Yeah, the crotch chop. I was familiar with that way before I knew anything about wrestling from being alive in the 90s.
It was huge in 7th grade. When I was in 7th grade, every boy who made my life hell would walk around going, suck it. She was part of that faction. And she was also eventually in a romantic relationship with Paul Levesque, aka Triple H.
Famously married to Stephanie McMahon. So something happened.
Oh, something happened. We're pretty sure something happened. But she is in the company, and eventually she does become the first woman entrant in the Royal Rumble. There's a great match where Vince McMahon comes in. He looks like Vince McMahon looks like if you took just like a regular mannequin and you put like goofy muscle arms on him.
Yeah, like in SpongeBob when he has like the blow up muscle arms. Yeah.
Yes, he looks like SpongeBob with muscle arms.
Yes.
Because Vince is clearly a guy who just exercises glamour muscles. You
Yeah.
know, he does his biceps and his shoulders, but he's not doing
Always skips leg
core.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, skips leg day, skips core. So he's walking around the ring and he's like a big tough guy, and then Chyna comes out and he's like running in fear of her. Pretty great. She does become the first and only woman to hold the Intercontinental title. She has a feud with Jeff Jarrett, who Jeff Jarrett is he's a really good heel in that he is actually someone you want to hate, but he like knows that he's doing that. You know what I mean? And he had a storyline with her where he's a really big over the top sexist. Obviously, that's the gravy train if you're a female wrestler who actually fights guys, is you gotta fight. This is what I wish they would do now. I want to talk about intergender wrestling for a second.
Yeah.
How do you
Please.
feel about it?
I was thinking about this recently. Oh, I was thinking about it with the mixed tag match that Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins and AJ Lee and CM Punk had, because I was thinking about the idea of like equality. Women should be able to fight men because this is all, everyone likes to point out it's all fake anyway. The women are just as athletic as the men. Um, why can't women fight men? But also, I think the optics of a man beating up a woman, there are certain segments of the population that might be into that for reasons that are not great. So that I don't love.
I saw an intergender wrestling match. It was a GCW match, which is an indie promotion I really love. And they had Masha Slamovich fighting Nick Gage, who is a hardcore wrestler, and he's really intense. And it was so funny the effect it had on me, because at the time I was very much like, I would love to see girls and boys fight. Like I think that's great. Everyone's being too much of a baby about this. And then I was actually watching that match, and it was one of the best wrestling matches I've ever seen in my life because of the journey of emotions I went on. Because most of the wrestling audience, even at indie shows, is men. And Nick Gage is a very beloved indie wrestler. He's very famous. Masha Slamovich is like younger, she's, newer, and she's a woman. Um, and there was a point in the match where she was losing and he's just like beating her up. And the guys in the audience are cheering like really hard. And it I wasn't like by the end of it, I was like fine with the crowd. Like I didn't think they were doing it to be like, yeah, get her. It was just like a wrestling show and their guy was winning. And but I did have a moment in there where I was like so angry. I was getting so upset. And it was so fantastic because I had this like incredibly emotional reaction to that moment where I was getting mad at the guys around me. I was like getting really angry at everybody. And then of course she comes back and wins, because that's the story of the match, is that she gets beat up and then overcomes and beats him. And everybody and all those same people who'd been cheering her getting beat up exploded and were just like cheering so loud for her and chanting her name and everything. And I was just so emotional, and I was like, this is wrestling. This is what it does to you. This is the journey it makes you go on. You know it's not real, but this is real. Like, uh,
Yes, it makes you feel things, and that is what art is supposed to do.
exactly. And it does. One of the things I've always liked about wrestling, this is the nerdiest thing you might ever hear me say, is that it makes me feel like a part of history, but not in the sense that I think that like what we're seeing is going to be remembered as history. It makes me feel like I'm a part of the human experience in the
Mm,
way that like people at the Colosseum were part of the human experience. People at the
yes,
Victorian pantomime were part of the human
yes.
experience. I'm part of a big messy crowd of people who are, screaming and being fed their bread and circuses,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
like
no, totally. I was talking to my mom about wrestling, who, because my mom is typical, Southern Protestant, just thinks it's, dumb and for poor people. Yeah, I said something about like it is the closest thing we have to like the origins of theater, like Euripides. It is the closest thing we have now. It is much closer to that than whatever's going on Broadway right
One
now.
Oh, it is the way that I am convinced, based on the research I have done in my life, that wrestling is closer to how people experience Shakespeare than
Totally.
how we experience Shakespeare now. Like that's
100%.
went to a loud, noisy theater where everyone went, "Oh!"
And
and
it's
it.
not just me saying it, it's Werner Herzog says it.
Oh, right. I think I did know that. Oh my god, I love Werner Herzog. He's my
The
dude.
best.
Yeah, man. But yeah, the very first wrestling show I ever really loved, or that made me a wrestling fan, was when I was in Mexico City. I went to the Arena Mexico to a CMLL show, which is Lucha Libre, and I had more fun than I've ever had on a trip ever. And it was so incredibly moving to be in a crowd of people who I don't speak very much Spanish. And, everything was in Spanish. And I still completely could follow along with everything that was happening. It's just like you enter this world of like, yeah, we all know how stories work. Isn't that amazing? Even if you don't speak the same language, every single person on the planet understands hero, bad guy,
Yeah, you want to see the bad guy get beat up. It's just that's just human nature, baby.
And it's so amazing how in any language you can communicate who the bad guy is very easily and
Yeah.
very quickly, and it's beautiful. But yeah, I will say that match with Masha and Nick Gage was very trying for me as far as an intergender wrestling supporter, because I did for the first time understand like, oh yeah, it does feel bad to be a girl and watch a girl get beat up by a big man while a bunch of other men cheer. Like that is a really horrific thing to see.
Yeah, that does feel bad.
Because also, how can you be a face or a hero
Right.
if you're beating up a woman? Okay, here's my final take on intergender wrestling. I think it should happen, but I think we need to get to a point where the audience has parity, because I think one of the things that makes it particularly a bad experience to watch a woman lose to a man in any way for even a moment is if the whole audience is men. Like that really sucks.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it sucks to be in any room where it's mostly men. And so to then be in a room where it's mostly men cheering for a woman getting beat up is,
I mean,
yeah, that's
just the
lovely.
smell of it is you're rolling the dice.
I 100% am on board with we can have intergender matches when the crowd is 50-50 men and women. Done.
Yes, because I will say, if you ever get the chance to go to Effie's Big Gay Brunch,
Okay.
there's a lot of different gender wrestling happening there. But it's fun because everybody's having fun. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
not a feeling of like real anger behind it, It's a supportive room. But
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So she had a notable run in her final days at WWE. She was in the running for King of the Ring, and she beat mid-Carter Val Venis, which I don't really know anything about Val Venus. I don't need to know anything. That's okay.
Mid Carter, I've never heard of. Is
Mid-Carter. I like that I'm using mid-Carter as a slur. It does not mean mid-Carter.
Yes.
But then and I shouldn't shade him because he put her over. He got beat by her. I should be nicer.
Good
Sorry.
for Val. Good for Val.
Good for you, Val. Val Venice, 2 V's. Watch, I'm gonna find out after this he's like a murderer. And I'm gonna be like, no, cut it out.
Cut that.
That's the problem with wrestling too, is like every once in a while you're like, oh, who's that? Oh, a murderer, of course. Yeah. Oops.
Yep.
But she loses in the next round to Kane decisively. And Kane is this, silent. You've seen Kane around,
I've
right?
seen Kane. Yeah, he is my brother-in-law and sister-in-law's mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, Kane is the mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee, if you didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that. They gave Kane power?
I got my nephew a Brothers of Destruction onesie for Christmas.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Did your parents vote for him?
It's my brother-in-law and my
Oh,
sister-in-law. So
oh,
I don't know. I don't know.
oh, okay. Well, you don't have to have that conversation if you don't want to. I was just curious. I don't know what his policies are.
Yeah, I'm gonna text him right now.
Hey, LOL, who'd you vote for? LOL. Um,
Okay, but my husband Brian, who is our producer, wants me to clarify that he is super MAGA, so they definitely did not vote for him.
oh, is Kane not MAGA?
No, he is. He
Oh,
is.
he is.
Not my brother-in-law is not super MAGA. Kane is super
Oh,
MAGA.
see, this is the world I come from. I assume you're saying your brother-in-law is super MAGA. I'm like, of course. Of course the wrestler is not and her family. No, it's the other way around. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Great. Of course, the wrestler is MAGA. Um
Yeah. Tale as old as time.
all the time. But yeah, so she was obviously able to be put over by these mid-card men, but she was not gonna beat a guy like Kane. And I do want to mention the only thing I like about Kane is that there is an indie wrestler called Blue Kane. Have you heard of Blue Kane?
No, but that's amazing.
Yeah, so Kane has the powers of fire, ostensibly, like was set on fire, like, fire happens around Kane. Blue Kane has the powers of snow and frost. And
Oh, that's good.
and he comes out and people chant Blue Kane, and it snows.
That's so good.
It's great. I think it was something they did in like a promotion in the UK, and I'm pretty sure it was maybe a one or two time thing because I'm sure they didn't want to get sued to hell and back. But yeah, that is one of my favorite indie wrestling characters. So I have to give it up for that inspiration. Um, but yeah, so then she poses for Playboy, which for at the time, I will say this: in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was an argument for posing for Playboy as a form of empowerment.
Sure.
I would not have done it, but it was a thing that like people did.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I think having a super muscly lady in Playboy may be a little bit progressive. I mean, look, it is what it is. This is all trashy. It's all trashy, and that's why we love it.
It's so hard. Like, I don't know if Gen Z understands like what that Playboy like culture was around Playboy back then, in the sense of
Right.
it being like cool and something that people like aspired to be around and part of. Um but I don't know if they know that, because I don't know if they know what Playboy is or magazines.
Well, I think the kids today are also very scared of sex in a way that is hard to deal
That's
with.
that's true. They would only understand it as like an OnlyFans that like
Right.
is on paper.
Right. Yeah, paper only fans.
Yeah, analog OnlyFans, which actually makes it sound incredibly cool. And now I get why people thought it was cool. Um, so she ends up leaving in 2001. A lot changed in the world that year. Most famously, Chyna left the WWE because her contract negotiations with the WWE did break down. A few other things happened that year, but it's not important.
Doesn't matter.
Um, but yeah, I mean, she leaves under a lot of the same shadows that Wendy Richter had cast over her leaving, in the sense that like she wanted to be paid more, she wanted to be treated better. Vince McMahon's like, "What? But you're a girl. Do that here." Um and so she ended up leaving. She couldn't One of the most heartbreaking things about her story is that she is maybe one of the most famous examples I know of someone who was a superstar in the company, left the company, and then wasn't allowed to keep the name attached to their character. They like this whole brand they've built, like this whole um identity that they live in publicly, it's taken away from them. And this is actually really common with WWE. I think in later years, people with more clout have managed to, cut different deals, but it's still largely the rule that like your name in WWE is owned by WWE,
Yeah.
which I think is just so I've always thought that's one of the more diabolical things about them as an organization.
I mean, it's very similar to Housewives in a way, right? Like it's you can't talk about your business on that you can't have a business on the show unless Bravo gets a cut of
Yeah.
it.
That's a good I actually don't think I knew that, but that's
Yeah, it's because of it's a Bethany Frankel rule because Bethany Frankel launched Skinny Girl while she was on the show and made a lot of money from it, and Bravo didn't see any of that. So then they started baking it into the contract.
she'll get them someday. Frankel, I believe in her ability to get them someday.
Yeah, she'll get that. She's dogged enough.
She's from a family of horse trainers. Horse people are different. They're just different. She's not going to go away. She's going to get them.
She's getting to the bottom of Nancy Guthrie, and she's getting to the bottom of Bravo.
She's going to watch. Mark my words. Click this so that the day that Bethany Frankel gets them, as in the Bravo executives and the kidnappers of Savannah Guthrie's mother, we'll play this on social media and be like, Anne knew she was going to get him.
There we go.
Anyway, sorry, tangent. But yeah, that's one of the things I really just hate about the WWE. Also because it's like famous wrestlers from the indies or something will come into WWE, they'll have their name changed.
Yeah.
It's really like Mariah May is one of my favorite female wrestlers. I'm kind of in love with her. It's not a big deal. Don't need to tell her that. But she recently joined the WWE. She had this great run at AEW, recently joined the WWE, changed her name to Blake Monroe. And I hate that so much because Mariah May is such a great name.
Blake Monroe is an awful name.
Blake Monroe. And I really can't express how much I don't like that name. I walk around the house saying it sometimes, like, please welcome Blake Monroe. Yeah. So it's one of my least favorite things about WWE because it's like it's a there's just no purer way to exploit people than by making them build a brand that they then never get to keep, even though everyone who works at WWE as a wrestler is an independent contractor. Like they aren't
right.
Have any kind of employee rights at all. So to not even allow them the option to market or trade on or even just appear publicly as these characters they've built for the company.
Yeah.
Diabolical. Real
Yep.
evil. And I will also say that when she leaves the company, this is like around when like the divas are becoming a thing. And the divas are did you ever watch like any of those reality shows they had?
Okay, here's my rant. I didn't at the time. I started watching Total Divas when it was on Peacock, and I fell in love with it. I wanted to watch every episode, and then when WWE moved from Peacock to Netflix, they didn't bring Total Divas with them. So I need Netflix to get on it and give me Total Divas so I can finish it.
God, that WWE vault is like the Disney vault. It's like, except they used to have their own streaming service where it was all up there,
Yeah.
like Disney Plus. But then they've had all these partnerships and stuff. But it is like it's like a much grosser, smellier Disney vault. Just locked away. All their stuff is locked
and
away.
There are 9 seasons of Total Divas in there that they need to give to me.
I didn't know it wasn't available. That's really disappointing.
I could buy it on digital, but I want to watch it. I don't want to $20 watch it.
Oh yeah. But yeah, the divas are not a thing that would have made sense for Chyna because
no.
Again, were barely allowed to really fight. A lot of their fights were over men. Because the women didn't really have their own storylines. They were kind of just, meant to be they were treated like sideshows in wrestling for a long time. Women in general were treated as sideshows. And and just a thing to like help draw people in, but they weren't a person like you wouldn't put women on like your promotional poster or your card as a rule, you know, unless you had there were a few exceptions throughout history, but in general women were not the draw. Girl wrestling was vastly underappreciated at the time.
Oh yeah, it was a frequent topic on Total Divas that their matches would either get like pared way down or just dropped altogether.
Yeah, I mean it was like sometimes they would have like 90 seconds. It
Yeah.
was really stupid. um And, you know, I will also say that there is something I do love about wrestling in terms of how chaotic the actual shows are. I hate that the women suffered in that era, but in general, I do love the idea of watching a live show where someone who had like a 10-minute match planned might have to do it in 4.
Wrestling is real. Like everything is that's just how it is. Like I always laugh at I have a big crush on Adam Pearce, general manager of Raw, but he is he is constantly like booking the show as it's happening. I'm always like, what was your plan for the main event tonight, Adam? If these two guys didn't start fighting each other backstage,
Oh, yeah.
what were you gonna do?
I love that. I love that. I feel like that's been a thing with Raw from the very beginning is that like
Yeah.
we don't know who's going to be on this show. Hopefully people are mad and then people come out and they're like we're mad. Um, my mom really likes Adam Pearce because my mom really appreciates like hyper realism in situations, and she does not like when something is happening in wrestling where like the rules are obviously being flouted or something and no one's doing anything. Like she has a real problem with that, you know? So she loves a suit coming in and being like, listen, listen. And then if they're not listening to her, she can be like, they're not listening. You know, like she
That's
loves
beautiful.
rules.
Me and your mom are gonna bond over people should listen to Adam Pearce more.
She just likes to see people work and have jobs with suits. Um, so she didn't really have a place in WWE anymore. The women's division was mostly divas, Trish Stratus, Lita. Stories were often like catfighting over dudes, slapping each other, not the kind of stuff Chyna does or the stuff that she would even necessarily be good for. Cause it's like, you know, no one's going to believe that a woman that powerful would simply slap you. Um, and they were also moving away from intergender completely. So she had a lot of trouble getting booked long term. Her contract negotiations broke down and she ended up leaving WWE. Post WWE, she goes to Japan for a while. I'm wearing my Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling t-shirt. I'm a huge fan of women's Japanese wrestling. Women's wrestling in Japan has a very long and storied history of being very badass because wrestling in Japan is taken incredibly seriously. They have all kinds of I want to say rules around like how the crowd acts and how things are done, very structured, and they also fight strong style, which is where you get hit. Like they hit you. Um and if you've ever seen there's a documentary called Gaia Girls, which is available on YouTube. Allison Wilmore, Vulture film critic, told me about it and sent me a link to it once. And it is pretty harrowing. It's a documentary about a women's wrestling school in Japan. And it was made in like the early 2000s, and it's just wild. You see women with blood pouring down their face. Yeah, but Japanese wrestling for women at the time is really exciting. And it's also like Japanese women's wrestling was it's a place where like Becky Lynch worked for a long time too before she came
Yeah.
over. Like it's actually a really great place to go if you're a female wrestler because they do just have the opportunity for you to have real matches, and they have this long history of women's wrestling so that there is institutional knowledge and people who will actually teach you and things like that. And it's not as I will say yeah, it's not a sideshow there the way it was here for a long time.
Yeah, I really don't know a lot about Japanese wrestling. I need to learn more. Maybe we can do an episode.
We should. Um Yeah, because otherwise I'll just keep talking about it. um, but yeah, she appears on TV in America. She appears on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Whose Line Is It Anyway? She's somebody who just like shows up. She was on Howard Stern a lot. Um,
Ooh. It's so funny. I watched a lot of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I do not remember her on there, but I think it was one of the like late seasons where they were just kind of trying to turn it into a teen show.
to be honest, the only Sabrina the Teenage Witch guest star I remember is Randy Travis because they have a spell where they're like Randy Travis, Randy Travis, Randy Travis, and then Randy Travis appears. Um, and it's the only thing I know Randy Travis from.
That's so funny.
um, uh, but this is also when she really kind of falls off the sobriety wagon.
Mm,
Um, drug use is unfortunately not uncommon, shall we say,
yeah.
in the world, but also the world of wrestling. Um,
I mean, you're wrecking your body, and
yeah.
this is also, I think, like peak like opioid crisis time, right? Like there we're just handing out painkillers
Yeah.
like crazy.
And a lot of wrestlers like boy wrestler John Moxley at AEW, um,
Mhm.
he got sober a few years ago and his problem was alcohol, but he was talking about it in an interview where he talked about, you take so many hits and you just, your body just gets really banged up and you start to get used to coming home from shows and just like numbing the pain. Like, or you're on the
Sure.
plane home and you're like, well, I'll just have like 4 whiskeys because my whole body hurts.
Yeah,
And that just becomes such a habit that you
totally.
inevitably develop this problem. Luckily, there's more awareness about it now, but at the time, obviously, people didn't talk about it very much, except she did go on celebrity rehab. Um,
Oh,
at the time, was as much health care as we had for anyone. Um,
still is.
yeah, she also released a sex tape, and that was unfortunate because she was pretty not well at the time.
Yeah.
She was dating X-Pac. He was in DX with her, and they were in a relationship. And they seemed to be people who just kind of enabled each other. I think they both had a lot of problems at the time, and they probably weren't great for each other. Though I didn't know either of them personally, so I don't want to.
No, I think that's fair to
Yeah,
say.
I don't want to spread rumors, but things weren't going super well. But then she did get to go and teach English in Japan for a while. She's being followed around for a while, making the reconstruction of China, which was supposed to be this comeback documentary like Jake the Snake had. But it ended up just resulting in a little bit of an embarrassing incident where she showed up unannounced at WWE headquarters. She was escorted from the building.
Ugh.
Um, yeah, it was just a really dark time, and it's a shame because she did pass away in 2016 as a result of an accidental overdose. Uh,
Ugh.
yeah, and the real crux of it for me, the real thing that I like, aside from just how much they screwed her over in every way possible, just exploited her, used her up, chewed her up, and spit her out, really, is how I feel like the WWE treated her. They also, she's only inducted in the Hall of Fame as a member of Degeneration X. Like, she's not
Yeah.
in it on her own, which is nuts.
Yeah, I mean that's we'll talk to Semler in a bit. That's the premise of their song is China should be in the Hall of Fame, which I mean, yeah, right? Like I
Yeah.
think the thing about the WWE Hall of Fame is like it's all just, corporate myth making, right? Like it's not like it's a huge honor, but it is like the company acknowledging like you were important to us as a company. You made us a lot of money. So thanks for that.
Right?
And she made them a lot of money.
Yeah, I think the line has historically been people are thinking like, oh, well, she was so, she had this really dark chapter at the end of her life, and that kind of like, made it hard to be associated with her. But like the thing about WWE is only what they want you to know is ever true. Like if you watch that Netflix documentary, it was just shocking the way that they can just present things how they want them to be presented, and then that becomes the truth because they own all their media. Like famously, the Montreal screw job, Bret Hart lost all the rights to his matches. Like they can just erase your career if they want
Yeah.
because they own all the footage of you wrestling forever. They own your name. They can completely ruin you. And in the same way, they can also rehabilitate you because they did that with Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
Like Hulk Hogan, I feel like is always the answer to like there being any kind of concern from WWE about how someone makes them look. Like
Yes.
that was your main guy.
Yeah. But I mean, what I think is beautiful about wrestling though, like as a people's art form is like, yeah, Hulk Hogan brought back around WWE all the time. His last appearance, he was booed to death on Raw. I think it was the first Raw on Netflix, and he was like he couldn't get his promo out because he was booed so heavily, and I think that's beautiful.
It is because even if the company won't remember, the fans will. And that's why we remember Chyna.
Okay, so we will take a little break, and we will be back talking to Semler, who has the song we were talking about putting Chyna in the Hall of Fame. So excited to talk to them.
When you go to the front of the line and you do things that are different, you almost take the bullet, for a couple of people, and it makes it easier for people to accept a different look.
The new breed of female pro wrestler.
There's something about her, everyone knew it. Beauty and power, delicate movement. What a hero, a shame. She never drove the road she paved. Still, they won't put China in the Hall
Semler, who, as we mentioned earlier, wrote a lovely song about China, who this episode was about. Semler, hello. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Hi. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Grace Semler Baldridge, and my artist project is under my middle name, which is Semler. And I grew up in a pretty religious household, so I was not allowed to really watch or engage with wrestling growing up. And so I fully have dived into what was forbidden as an adult, wrestling being a very fervent passion of mine today. And I love China. I love specifically women's wrestling. I think those are always like the best matches on the card, especially these days. And I'm thrilled to be here with you all.
Sick. Yeah, so let's just get right into the song. What kind of inspired you to write a song about China?
I was pretty determined to not write a song about China. I loved her and was like really fascinated with her story and felt passionately about her getting a solo Hall of Fame induction for a while, probably about a year before I wrote the song. And I was hanging out with a friend of mine one day and they said, I really think you should write a song for China because I'm a songwriter. So like that's what I do. And I was like, oh no, that'd be so strange. That'd be so weird. And probably a few months after that, I think this is very poignant. I was lifting weights outside, which I don't do pretty frequently, but I was like lifting weights and the chorus for China like happened at me, just like the full chorus. And I was like, shoot, I think I have to do this song. I think I have to finish this song. So that's it almost sort of happened at me. We wrote the chorus and we had that going for a while. And then my producer would sort of send me home with like all this empty space for the verses. And in the period of like a month or two, it came together and I didn't think I was going to release it because it's so different. And I was like, who's going to understand this? And I just felt more and more compelled that like, I think I can release this. I actually think there's an audience for it. I just need to do my due diligence to find those people. And I'm so happy that I have because I really love the wrestling community and the way that they've championed her story. And I think that being part of a group of people that just really want to further and honor the legacy of someone who really deserves it and didn't get to see it in their lifetime has been a real honor and a real privilege.
That's awesome. I am so in awe of artists who are just like, yep, it just popped into my head. I think Anne and I are both writers and I agonize over words for a very long time.
It's like spiritual what you're describing. It's like a magic spiritual moment. Yeah.
That's wrestling.
Definitely
right?
the chorus felt that way. The chorus felt really very much like it just all happened at one time. And I was like, wow. I was like that. I really like that. I love the way that like the ninth wonder, and it's not like, I almost like don't even want to take credit for it in a way because it really just like just like you really, as a songwriter, most of us feel sort of like conduits from something. And so you just sort of get lucky that your mind is open and your headphones are off so that you can like receive something. But I remember really agonizing with the producer I was working with over the verses because I felt that was so important to tell her story in a way that wasn't like corny. That part felt like writing. That part I was like, oh, like how do I do this in a way that was like she was a wrestler? Like I want to I want to say stuff like that provides context but also doesn't patronize the fact that many of us know who she is and hold her dear.
Yeah, sweet.
Well, is that like typical to your process? Do things typically just come to you, or do you have like a way that you approach making music typically?
Usually for my own project, if I'm writing for someone else, it's a lot more we're in the room, we're writing together for the specific project, more board meeting, but cool type thing where you're like bouncing ideas off of it. For my own project, it is like usually a hook or a chorus will come in to my brain and then I like build from around that, and that's how this song worked too.
Yeah, awesome.
You had mentioned that you were not allowed to watch wrestling as a kid. I also like came to wrestling as an adult. It wasn't until I had an infant, and it was my husband who started like late night when you are just like so brain dead, and there is a lot of it, and it's you can really follow it when you only have like a quarter of your brain working at a time. So like I'm really interested, like what got you like as an
Mhm.
adult, like what hooked you?
I deeply relate to your husband. That is pretty much like it's sort of like how I got into wrestling was during our maternity leave. We'd gotten the Peacock app because my wife, we wanted a lot of media. You're right, for the potato times, for
Yes.
when you have
Yep.
a potato. And so we gotten Peacock, and I wasn't allowed to watch wrestling, but I always like really appreciated the athleticism, the story, and kind of like the drag of it all, the performance, the entertainment, like all of it is just so deeply entertaining and it's fun. And I really, really liked China, even as a kid. And I knew that like I would never be allowed to engage with anything about her, but just something about how she defied gender stereotypes in ways that didn't make sense to me at the time, but now obviously I understand why, was so inspiring to me. Like her confidence in being different and being like muscular and strong in her strength, it was just so cool and undeniable. I really liked that about her. So when we got the Peacock app, I was scrolling through, like, I'm gonna go look at some China highlights while I'm taking care of my potato. And I couldn't find anything about her on Peacock. And I was like, that's weird. Like it was almost like she didn't exist. I remember being like, did I make her? Was she just Xena the princess war? Like, was she real? And I was like, no, she was real. And then of course when you all it takes is like a Wikipedia search. Just when you skim the surface with China, what I found is that you immediately get like you see the whole underbelly of the iceberg because there's just that much meat to her story, and it makes you feel just so tender for this person who really deserved better. From that point forward, I think it was just like that was sort of it for me. I was really invested in seeing one person get justice in this way of the solo induction. I know it's like there's just so much we can't change about the world, but for some reason this feels like something that if we saw we could do right by one person, kind of instills my faith in humanity just a little bit more. And I think especially as a parent, you look for those opportunities to showcase hope. And I think about that with China's story and with how many of us are rallying behind her currently.
That's beautiful. I mean, I we talked earlier about the way that her story it's the sort of thing that she did not have the resources that like the women in wrestling today have, but like it's because of her that they have those things. So, to recognize her in that way.
I know. And that I think about, I do this a lot of times, and sometimes people on TikTok will be like, I was accused recently of being like a conspiracy theorist, and I think this is kind of the closest I come to it in my own life, which is that like, because I do this thing where I will look up dates in wrestling and then as it relates to China's passing or China's era. Like I just am sort of curious because of this massive footprint that she made on this industry that we still see the reverberations of today. And I think about that with regards to the first Evolution, the first women's pay-per-view, and how she sort of missed it. I think she missed it. She passed within like 3 or 4 years, maybe even less than that.
Mm.
But it was not a long period of time. And how the most recent Evolution that I think was the best pay-per-view of 2025, like by far, I thought that was the best program, how she would have loved it, and how there were so many wrestlers also who deserved their due, who were being honored, that were there. There were so many women that they were showing, like, and here's this person and here's this person, and they're all here to celebrate women's wrestling tonight. And how the omission of China to me felt so loud that she wasn't there. It's like this massively, it's like this silent looming presence that I think I'm also a religious person, so I'm like, that just feels wrong on a spiritual level. Like you got it. Like I know that they'll sometimes like flash her up there, they'll like put a photo and be like, there, you guys, we did it. But I'm like, we really got to do something about honoring a person's like legacy and like letting someone rest. The fact that there isn't even a place where we can lay flowers, like there's just so much to mourn with her story, and it doesn't need to end that way. We can do something right here. People in positions of power who knew her could do the right thing. And I kind of don't understand why they aren't. Is it just the ego of it? I don't know.
I mean, I think
You
it
won,
speaks.
like you won. I don't get it.
Yeah, like I think it really speaks in a weird way to how far we have come in the last like even just 10, 20 years because those forces that held people like China back are still very much there because it's so recent, all of this. Like it's not
Hmm.
ancient history that there was a time when the women of WWE couldn't really even weren't even allowed to really fight. And I think it's hard for people to believe that that
Hmm.
was so recent, but it really is.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
I think they do a good job, I think, of obfuscating that truth by now they're really like rocketing women to the moon. And so I think we all sort of suffer from a little bit of short-term memory loss where you forget like how recently was it the Divas champion and how and like that China had the women's championship and that belt was just like dormant. Like we do sort of forget how close together all this stuff sort of happened. And because they are excellent at branding and moving along, that it becomes harder to discern, I think, the truth of it, which is that, yes, to your point, Anne, like it's all so recent and we just lost her just 10 years ago this like next week.
Yeah.
I always laugh anytime, you know, the promotions for a women's event is like, and this is the first women's whatever. And it's like, yeah, y'all, that's not something to be excited about. Like it is 2026. I wouldn't be bragging about that. But you know, Stephanie McMahon invented women, so
Oh yeah. Do you know there's a rumor that Vince McMahon's coming back at WrestleMania? Have y'all heard anything about that? I don't know if I just saw that on like a weird on TikTok or something. Like I don't know if there's any truth to that. I wasn't sure if you have any different information.
I have
I haven't heard that, but it like it's one of those things that I feel like gets whispered on the regular at certain points when the press starts to die down. I feel like there's this whisper campaign where people are testing like Vince might come back. It feels like a test, to be honest with you. Whenever these rumors pop up, I feel tested. Like I feel like they are testing the water to see if he could.
You know what it's like? It's like when companies do like an April Fool's Day thing where it's like, but we'll make this if you like it though.
Yeah, like if people don't get mad about this, then yeah. But I would be
Yeah.
horrified. I would be really horrified.
That's well, they did when Stephanie McMahon came. I was actually at the Raw 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. This is not airing live.
Oh,
so it'll
when
be when she came out and like slapped
with Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes, and they did
Yeah.
talk about her dad, which yeah, it could be a test balloon, which was
Oh.
a weird promo. I was also my like tinfoil hat thing was like, well, I guess it's not. It's just literally how the business works. It's like her Cody telling Stephanie McMahon, "You're not like your father," like is good for her because people don't like her father. So I don't know. I don't know where that's going.
I also like I don't really have animosity for Stephanie McMahon in the same way that I do for Triple H. I think that like misogyny is a hell of a drug, and I think that it's like baked into so many of us socially and something that you have to like deconstruct from yourself. And I watched her podcast recording with AJ Lee, which did you guys watch that? Stephanie McMahon and AJ Lee?
I have to do those podcasts in chunks like they're so cringe for me to watch, but I did not.
Because I love AJ Lee.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And you know they're like we can infer it's about wrestling. Wrestling is like where you suspended disbelief, but like they are on very opposite sides. Like AJ Lee was bringing up like trans rights, free school lunches. Like she was just like absolutely going to town, and they did and mentioned Chyna as a foundational wrestler that inspired AJ Lee to get started. And Stephanie McMahon followed up on that and was like, yeah, when Chyna first got into the business, she was wrestling the men and she could really go, and had this like positive response in a way that I was doing the dishes, like just listening to it while I was, and then that happened, and I need to take out my earphones and like find my family and be like, hey, I'm gonna need a minute. I feel like Ben Affleck with like the cigarette. I was like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. That's trending everywhere in my brain, and it's trending nowhere in my life. And I think that like I wonder if Stephanie McMahon has done some work to like reconcile whatever happened between her and China. And I'm not saying that China was necessarily a perfect ex-girlfriend in this situation
Of
that was
course.
very stressful. But I don't think that should be required for a person to have a solo induction and for their work to be recognized. And it's certainly not the standard that any of the men have been held to that are in the Hall of Fame.
I was gonna
But
say
I
you
do,
cannot.
yeah,
You brought Hulk Hogan out so many times. There is nothing that you can say about China that would
yeah,
justify anything. It come close to anything
yeah.
that we can say about Hulk
So I
Hogan.
wonder about her. Like, I wonder about Stephanie McMahon if there's, post her being inducted, if maybe it's like, hey guys, like, can we move on and like give this woman what was her wish in the last year of her life, what she campaigned for heavily in the final year of her life? She started a YouTube channel for it. When people are like, who cares? She's in with DX. It's not me being like, I care on her back. She cared. How do we honor someone who's no longer here? And that speaks to who we are as a society. That speaks to who we are as people. How do we grieve and mourn and honor those who have passed? We do right by them. So I don't that's where I get like really confused with like, am I just like extremely Christian about this? But it feels like we're not doing right by a woman who deserves it.
Yeah, totally.
Am I like, I mean, I'm literally a preacher's kid, so sometimes I feel like I'm like, am I being a Boy Scout about this? But guys, I really feel like we should be honoring the dead. Not to
No,
be
you're
weird.
you're doing a good thing, and you're applying like good person logic to a company that I feel like has dedicated itself to in some ways doing a little bit of evil once in a while. Just,
Hmm.
I don't know about that, Anne. I don't even know what point of reference you could have. When Brock Lesnar came out, I was like, because I like to watch with my daughter too. She loves Io Sky. And if it were me,
Oh yeah.
I would be like, Io Sky is every parent's dream, like role model if you love wrestling. Like the women are doing such incredible work. It's so fun for the whole family. I love it so much. And then they bring out Brock, and I'm like, that's it. Actually, the program's done. I don't know how, because what the heck are we
I
doing?
actually,
We
yeah.
just
So
don't care.
my daughter loves Becky Lynch, and she'll stick up her hand to do the man comes around. It's so cute. But I had that feeling when I was at Raw. I was seated behind a row of like a bunch of little boys, which is the way to watch wrestling. Like they are marking out so hard, and it's
Okay.
amazing. But like they were so excited for Brock Lesnar, and I was like, I don't want these little boys idolizing Brock Lesnar. Like I don't personally have a problem with Brock Lesnar doing his job. I do have a problem when he is being a role model for little boys who are
Mhm.
just going to either not know about any of the shit that went down there or not care. And either one is bad. I don't know which is worse.
yeah.
Yeah. It's the plight that we sort of face as wrestling fans where it's like, "Oh, should I get into wrestling?" I'm usually like, "Probably not." Like if it hasn't bit you and you care
Yeah.
about accountability, I wouldn't, because you'll just be frustrated mostly. You just
Yeah.
mostly will be frustrated because it seems as though so long as the reins are within the family, it is kind of, that's the way I explain it is like it's kind of like the mafia, I think. Like it's sort of that. It's like a mafia family, and Triple H was like, I want to be in the family. And if you're not in the family, like you just sort of see how things go. And I always root for the wrestlers who I love, but it feels like the wrestlers who I love are like just swimming upstream. Like they are just really trying to work against a system that is designed to only um benefit a very very small, and that's a very very small like percentage of the company. And that is really why wrestling is fascinating, because it's just a microcosm of what we're all in. Like
Yes.
that's really, it's like the 1% is the McMahon family, and it's all the other wrestlers, and you like root for those like guys doing their best, and the women especially. But at the end of the day, it's gonna go the way that the McMahons want it to go and be. And so long as they're at the helm, the product will, I think, just be limited. And I have been watching AEW a little bit too. I know that things are on the independent side, it's very exciting, but WWE just has that sort of access to our eyeballs in a way, and the legacy of generational like pass down, where you can like watch it with you maybe watch it with your uncle, and now it like has been around for that long. It's like sort of this behemoth. It's just like it's Disney, you know, and it's hard to avoid, but it's also like very hard to defend, and I often don't defend it.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I always say that wrestling is the most honest relationship in my life. Like it is very much like we are trying to sell you something and I am buying it. And we do not have a I would say we have an antagonistic relationship, but it is one that keeps me entertained. So that's what it is.
I'm gonna seal that. I like saying that it's an antagonistic relationship. I feel that for sure. When I saw that they're putting the first hour of WrestleMania for free on ESPN2, and then the next hour be like behind a paywall on like the new mystery ESPN platform that like no one will ever, it makes right. I see, and the light leaving your eyes. Like that's how I feel, where I'm like, you can't, it's just insane. I'm like, okay, so I'll get ESPN2 until I won't need that, because then I'll have, just let me watch what I want to watch. But they don't want us to have a good time. And that, I think they take like a sick pleasure from it. They're like, we know that we hooked you, you weirdos. We know you're here. And I'm like, damn it, you kind of are. Like, you're kind of right.
It's true. It's a toxic, abusive relationship.
It's a toxic one. Yeah, but I think that's why I feel like that's why I feel like emboldened of anything I could sort of like go for with regards to like really pushing for Chyna's solo induction. It's like that is the dynamic that they set up with their fans. They want feedback. So here's some feedback for you. They want to know what we think. They care about it. I have heard from former WWE writers in my DMs about like, if you even said Chyna's name around the office, it was like you said a bad word. Like I know that they check for this sort of thing, and so I know that they're doing wrong, that this complacency that they're trying to erase her, and I just feel emboldened of all organizations that I could petition against or for, kind of a bit of both, that this is one who is like they receive that, they're aware of it, and they're like clocked into what their fans think and care about. So I'm like, okay, this is what we care about. Your move.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. Like even the Divas Revolution, like the whole state of women's wrestling changing kicked off online. Like it was a Twitter campaign that they couldn't ignore anymore. So you're absolutely right, I think.
Yeah.
I know I've been really trying to get hashtag induct Chyna to move, but it's been hard.
It's hard now. Now that Twitter
social media is hard. Yeah. Twitter would have been the spot for hashtags, but it's awful now. I don't even have an account.
Yeah, they burned our town square.
Our town square.
They burned
it. Should we play a game?
Yeah. Okay. I'm afraid, but yeah.
No, it's good. So this is it's feud tag retire. It's basically I'm going to give you 3 names. They're all, spoiler alert, Chyna notable
they're all
opponents,
Chyna,
or they're all Chyna. So you're gonna pick who you would want to have a feud with,
like me,
obviously.
Me wrestle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I played college basketball, so
there you go. You can train up.
So I know pain.
If Jelly Roll can do it, you can do it. And then who you would want to retire. Easy enough. So we have Mark Henry, Chris Jericho, and Eddie Guerrero.
Oh. Well, yeah, it's going to be retire Chris Jericho. I don't understand how he's like, yeah. I think feud with Mark Henry. He seems funny. I think we could do some good promos, and definitely tag with Eddie Guerrero. Like, what a legend.
All right. Yeah, I think that's correct. You did it. You won.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I won the game.
100%.
Okay, now I think to close out. Well, first, like, where can people find you and your music?
Sure. You can find my music at my name, Semler, wherever fine music is found. You can find me on Instagram under my government name, which is at Grace Baldridge. And you can find me on TikTok at Semler. And yeah, that's pretty much where you'll find me. And you'll find me around out and about in Los Angeles.
Great. Okay, so now we are going to give you 60 seconds in a blatant
Okay.
ripoff of I Don't Think So, Honey, because we are a podcast and that's what happens. We're going to give you 60 seconds to make your case for why Chyna should be in the Hall
Okay.
of Fame. And I am
Will you give me
starting
time stamps though?
Yes, I will give you timestamps.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
here. I'll just hold my phone up to the screen. All right. Go.
Chyna should be in the Hall of Fame. Number one, she was the first and to date only woman to hold the Intercontinental Belt. She broke barriers for women in women's wrestling. She changed the face of women's wrestling. She went against men before it was like intergender matches. Like she broke barriers in that regard. That's point one. Okay, point two, she should be in the Hall of Fame because everything that she did cumulatively changed the trajectory of women's wrestling. Without her, we don't get a Rhea Ripley, we don't get AJ Lee, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, what have you. She opened up all those doors, and she's being held out of the Hall of Fame because her ex-boyfriend can't mature and grow up, and he doesn't want her in the Hall of Fame pretty much. And that's what he kind of said on record, and you can look it up. And it was her last wish that she would be in as a solo competitor, not in with DX. We know that she's in with DX, but she asked for a solo induction into the Hall of Fame. And if we can do right and honor people in their death, then we can do a lot in this lifetime. And it speaks a lot about who we are as people. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. That was amazing. Yes. Pretty much exactly 1 minute. That was great.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was very stressful.
Well, you nailed it. Grace Semler, thank you so much for joining us. This was lovely.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. And all the best for future podcasts. I'm so happy that there are places for people like us.
Yes.
Sweet. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.